Wayne, thanks so much for joining us at the studio.
Great being here, Mel.
Man, I can't tell you what an honor it is. I've had our Bible of graphic design. I think this might have been like one of the first editions.
Yeah, you can buy it.
Coffee table books.
Buy it on eBay for $5 now.
Well, yeah. I think I remember it being more like $500 when I first bought it. But man, well worn, well tabbed, well used.
Dude, that's the third book that I
yeah, for a lot of years.
This was the best book in the business for about 5 minutes. The mistake we made.
I think we got it in the right 5 minutes.
The mistake we made was making it a coffee table book. And as soon as it came out, a better book that was half the price, soft cover, came out. That was much better, and 2 more books came out. So this had a very short life.
Well, for what it's worth,
it was fun.
It was fun. Got a special aura to me and our team, and so thankful for your thought leadership. We've had a chance to meet with a few TIA masters, but there's not a lot that have kind of been as foundational to kind of defining the discipline within the experience design industry, and really just the architecture and urban design, just development business, as you have in Wayne Hunt Design. I mean, so man, what an honor to sit down.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, when they called me and said you're going to be a master, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, like, holy crap! We're kind of in a discipline that's a little bit behind the scenes. We're not up there cutting the tapes of these projects. So it was, number one, really great to be on that very short list of people, and so that was great. So,
well, to me, no brainer, to be honest with you. I can't.
Well, now what I've learned about we masters is we're very discipline oriented. Oh, we need a graphic designer. Oh man, who? Yeah, that guy does. That's Wayne. Let's get him. So I mean, it was like filling a slot in kind of a way.
Sure.
But I think to answer your question, and this may come up later, I did actually accidentally build a practice where if WDI or Phil Hedema or Bob Rogers needed a graphic design consultant, our name would probably come up. It just would come up. We wouldn't get the job necessarily, but we would be on the list all the time. So we kind of became go-to. And then as I said, I met Marty early in the 70s, and then he kind of adopted me in a way, and when outside help was needed, we'd get called a lot, and he would guide us through this.
That's awesome.
And then when Bob Weiss came in, he did the same thing with my partner. So we had this kind of connection with the Disney projects for 40 years.
Wow.
Kind of not really making sales, but just a relationship that evolved.
Yeah.
And then I took over for Marty at Ryman Arts when he was the president of that foundation, and he asked me to be the next president. I thought, oh man. So there was a kind of connection in a lot of ways with that organization. And
that's great.
It's been great. Yeah.
Well, I want to rewind.
Because
I'm assuming that you weren't born out the womb thinking I want to be, the guru of environmental graphic design. My
very quick story is I went to a very progressive high school. Their lockers didn't have locks. Oh, can you imagine that? It's the honor system.
Wow.
That worked for about one semester, right?
Okay.
And they had a cool big art thing with a kiln and all this, and a really hip, cool teacher. He was so hip, he had a Studebaker Hawk. In 1964, that was the coolest car you could have. And he played Peter, Paul, and Mary records and Bob Dylan records in art class. And then you could put your study hall together with the art class and have 2 hours with this guy.
Wow.
We'd smoke cigarettes behind a kiln. I mean, it was the hippest thing. I said, I want to be like that guy.
All right.
I want to be a high school teacher with all these cool kids and with no rules and play jazz music. So I wrangled an art education scholarship at Illinois.
Okay.
And I got to Illinois and I saw all this design work on that's graphic design. I bailed on that art ed scholarship within 1 semester.
Wow.
My parents, wait, you're giving up the scholarship? Yeah, I want to do this. I don't have a scholarship for that. So I became a graphic designer within minutes of discovering it.
Wow.
But that's a journey to Illinois. And then when I graduated, New York, Chicago, I work in Chicago already. So, okay, I've never been to California. Let's go to California. Came out with my first wife and portfolio and looked around for a job.
Wow.
So that's 1970.
Okay.
69, 70. Yeah.
Well, and then I know you have a mentor you've written about and speak really highly of.
I got a job. It was the worst job in the world for a whole year. And every lunch hour, I spent looking for my next job.
Okay.
And I tell my students, you always look for your next job. Don't tell anybody, but you always keep your eye on what's the next thing. So every day I look for a new job. And a year later, I found the best job in the world with a guy named John Follis. He was an Eames-like character with a multidisciplined design office. He came out of Beckett's office. He was the interiors and graphic guy at Beckett for many years.
Wow.
And he and a partner named Fred Usher made a terrific firm in the middle 50s. They did Hemisphere, Texas. They did SeaWorld stuff. They did furniture. It was great. Graphics, of course.
Okay.
And I hooked in there in 1970, and it was the best job.
Wow, great timing. Right as Welton was segueing Walt's neighbor to doing the...
From hating to go to work to not wanting to leave work. So when I became my own boss, I wanted to be like John Follis in terms of how he ran things and how he treated people, and just his whole general attitude about business.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm thinking that multidisciplinary collaboration, right, with that, working within Welton Beckett and then establishing that practice. In 1970, pretty good timing, right? They're probably hot and heavy on Disney World and the Contemporary and the Polynesian.
Was that not a sweet spot in time? So you were too young, but there was a sweet spot there.
Hey, I was born at least.
There was a sweet spot then. There was a sweet spot in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I see in the 90s when Las Vegas kicked off, there's a series of these intense moments where there was a lot of creative projects and people to do them were needed, and it was just a great time to build a business and have fun. And the contracts weren't this thick back then. I mean, you could work for MGM Grand without signing off your
life,
life.
And your kids.
So it was great. I think dumb luck plays a lot of it, but seizing opportunities and being ready for opportunities is the key.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I mean, what a big influence in shaping what Disney and themed entertainment was by working beyond the berm into first themed hotels.
Well, right away, John got the contract to do the original hotels at Epcot, the Contemporary Resort and Polynesian Village, and I became the project manager, like age 23.
Wow.
I'm like the project manager of these two projects. So that's how I met Marty and all those guys. And it was a rush to the finish line, like all projects. We had a year to do the project. It was already under construction, but that was terrific. And then he got a nice project from Universal to do all of the signage supporting the tour.
Oh yeah,
with Jay Stein.
Tour's ramping up. Yeah,
I took some bruises from Jay Stein in a meeting. I still got them, and that was 50 years ago.
Wow.
So we did a number of things for Universal, small things. And then when I had to hang up my own shingle, and when I left, I ended up with some work on Space Mountain almost immediately.
So the 77?
Was
that when you hung up the shingle?
77, I think 77 exact,
Yeah, perfect timing.
Yeah,
between Space Mountain,
perfect timing,
starting up of Epcot.
And I started to get some projects overflow from Disney graphics, web graphics, Tokyo retail stuff.
Okay.
And, I forget the sequence of events, but it kind of built slowly. But keep in mind that the themed entertainment work in my life was only about a third of it.
Yeah,
I was doing other stuff too.
Right.
The theme park stuff is maybe the most fun, and with the coolest people.
Yeah. So what are your buckets? I mean, are zoos in the theme park bucket?
Well, I guess you could say with placemaking, broadly speaking, and that would include theme parks and entertainment, and of course, museums, events, cities. We do lots of work in
urban
cities.
wayfinding.
We fell in love with the National Park Service early on and did dozens of work project for the National Park Service.
Awesome.
And I don't want to be cynical, but when I'm working on the National Park Service, we'd say, well, here, the stories are actually true. There's no writer.
Yeah, right.
This really happened.
They're still edited, but yeah.
The Battle of Saratoga really happened.
Right.
There wasn't a writer to come up with the script. So we were always balancing the authentic stories of the National Park Service and their visitor centers and signage and stuff with the fantasy and fiction of the theme park world. So I found that a kind of interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, I was just at Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse yesterday, in fact, and talk about true stories, but the need to edit and figure out.
I think this is why a lot of us in our business love to work on authentic places.
Yeah.
And a lot of the attraction firms that spun off in the 80s from Universal and Disney do work in museums and visitor centers and help tell authentic stories. And that's how I was trained. It's interpreting and sharing information about real places and events. So I like that.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were able to kind of move the needle in terms of, the traditional nonprofit, whether it's Park Service or cities?
I think people would say we're trying to bring some of the entertainment, storytelling, and vitality to the fairly dry historical record. And if you're doing a Saturn V exhibit at Kennedy Space Center, it's just not a bunch of cases with dust on it. It's a vital, living story that you put together and using maybe your theme park design chops. It kind of all comes together, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So within, for example, Disney or themed entertainment work, I know at some points in time there's been a little bit of a Berlin Wall, or at least a berm between the in-park, in-berm work and the outer-berm resorts. And
the berm is a term I learned from Disney. There's not an actual berm, but there might as well be, a moat, around the parks, and that's probably true of Universal as well. Inside the berm in the day was Marty Sklar and his 500 or 3,000 Imagineers, depending on the period.
Pre or post layoffs,
And then outside the berm was the resort side with Wing Chao and architecture, hotels, transportation, infrastructure, parking, trams.
Yep.
And those to me were as interesting as inside the berm. And inside the berm, there's the attractions. And what I have concluded and told my zoo clients and others, that your typical guest who goes to a theme park or zoo, how much time are they actually in a ride? Actually in a ride.
Exactly, yeah.
What, 10% of the day?
Yeah, they'd be pretty lucky. There's no way.
Let's add the queuing. How much of the day are they in a queue in a ride? 15%? Well, the rest of the time they're on the site.
Yeah.
They're shopping, they're planning, they're walking, they're sitting, getting shade. So designing the place is absolutely key. And the attractions change over the years, but the place remains a great place. And I think Disneyland is a great example. They want to go be in that place, right? The attractions are different. So I'd love
You're paying $100 to cross a threshold.
I really love being on the hardscape teams and the planning and the area development stuff. I think is super, super interesting, and how it all fits together, creating a language.
Have you seen an evolution in sophistication or anything over the years, whether it's the paving, whether it's the graphics?
Well, what you see is try to get more and more square footage for attractions, less and less for circulation, right? Because you can maximize the shows.
We're figuring out how to use airspace nowadays.
And then in the old days, you had this hub and spoke system, and it was logical. You'd go do a whole land, come back. Now people go attraction to attraction.
Right.
The land identity is much less important. They're ping pong around.
Yeah.
That happened about 20 years ago. So it sort of breaks down the logical guest experience when they're zigzagging around the park. It screws up the circulation. It's not the people flowing. We'll do this before lunch, after lunch. So it's a whole different world.
The whole
different world of guest experience in terms of site planning. And I'm just a done graphic designer, but I'd loved being in those meetings with the people who were making those decisions, right?
Sure.
I could never stay in my lane. That gets you in trouble.
Well, has that gotten you more trouble, or is that something that, collaborating in the valuing?
It's got me in trouble a little bit. But it's really been my guiding star. I'm a sponge. I can go in a meeting about any topic, and I can come back and know a little bit about that topic. So I go to the next meeting, I'm kind of a little smarter. So I'm pretty good at working with all kinds of people and understanding their language, playing it back to them a little bit so I can participate. They wanted this in the meetings. They wanted us in the charrettes. I did calls to be in charrettes. Blank paper charrettes. I'm just a graphics guy. So especially on smaller projects, where there's only a team in the charrette of maybe 8 or 10 people. So I really liked that sort of pushing the boundaries. I guess there's graphic design, placemaking in that, but I like to be in the concept part too.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
When you're thinking about placemaking and wayfinding and you know, to have the different disciplines.
And of course, the smaller projects, that's perfect. Like a National Park Visitor Center, like at Zion.
Yeah.
We are the lead. And so we put the team together.
Right.
So
right.
it's exhibit design, it's storytelling, it's high-tech stuff, it's magic maps. So we would grow into that big role on the small project. Now, we wouldn't do that on a giant attraction.
Yeah.
We'd be back in our pigeonhole. But I really enjoyed that. Every day was a different kind of thing, you know? It's great. Yeah.
I've got to ask any of your favorite, in terms of some of the different buckets that you've played in.
Well,
any favorite
I thought you were going to ask me that. There's three things that I could tell you right away. We were on the wonderful but ill-fated Pleasure Island team, and that was before your time. But that was one of the weirdest, most wonderful experiences.
Yeah, Chris Carradine.
All those pictures have been expunged from the record.
Okay.
It's not listed in any Disney list. It came and went so fast, but that was an incredible...
I did experience it.
That was an incredible project with Rick Rothschild and Chris Carradine.
Yep.
It was just great, and then we could have a whole conversation about that. And I believe that project is the ancestor of all RD&E.
Yeah.
That it failed, but it set the tone for after-hours entertainment that's sort of been picked up around the world.
Yeah.
And we worked on City Walk, and
well, you coined the phrase City Walk, right? I had seen versions of Rock Walk and some other lame names, but
I'll get back to the top three in a minute. So City Walk, they were going to call it Main Street on all the meetings. We knew that wasn't going to fly.
Sure.
Okay, let's have a contest for the name. They didn't want to pay for it, so I won't tell you who the guy was at Universal. First prize was lunch with this guy. Second prize was dinner with him.
Ooh.
So you can tell you. Anyway, we did the name. So Pleasure Island was great. Bob Rogers, who's been great to us over the years, brought us in for the Saturn V Center at Kennedy Space Center. He did this wonderful movie, you know, Bob Rogers pre-show, Apollo 8, and then the landing. In the middle was the rocket, which they gave us the exhibit scope to design that entire exhibit for the world's biggest rocket. And we had the best time designing that exhibition. And it's still today, it's a little dusty, but still there. And you get to do cool stuff. We went down with Kurt Honfeller, who was the project manager, team meeting, kickoff. Oh, let's go over to this warehouse. We go with these engineer guys, the older guys, and they pull a tarp off this thing, and there is the lander for Apollo 14, the backup lander. The real, you know, they made two. They made two, right? The real one is still up there, but the backup lander was there. And there's dust everywhere. And you want to go in it? Yeah. So they get a ladder. I go up and I get in the lander where, you know, it's
wow.
And there's like Scotch tape and duct tape, and it was so basic.
Yeah.
Anyway, that backup lander was restored, and it's the one that's on exhibit.
Wow.
In the hall. So that was a great fun project. And at that time, like this is the mid-90s, some of the original engineers were still available, and we got to work. The last man on the moon, the astronaut, was part of that team.
Wow.
It's embarrassing. I'll get his name. And the third project was the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
Man.
You know, and I always loved the mall. We got to do all the signage and graphics for the Smithsonian institutions, for the Leaf Memorial, working with the National Park Service, and 14 agencies, including Architect of the Capitol, National Capital Planning Commission, Fine Arts Commission. We worked that through for almost 3 years to get that built, and it's simply a directional signing program, but it's all granite and porcelain, and it's been up for about 15 years, and I was there last year. It still looks great. Yeah. So those three really stand out as fun projects you really wanted to be part of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I know you've done a lot of urban placemaking as well, and we've had the joy of, you know, redesigning our downtown, our hometown here in Corona. Pasadena is kind of that for you. Is that kind of up there in terms of the?
Well, we somehow fell into the civic signage business. We did the original Old Pasadena in 1983.
Wow. Yeah.
And then that led us to work on Culver City's downtown, and then 50 cities later, the firm is still doing it. Now, I'm not there anymore, but I think they're in their 50th city. And doing Pasadena was a high point, and because I lived there and I see the stuff every day.
Right.
We really had learned how to do it by then, and how to organize the various civic groups and how to get it approved. And it looks like it's simple when it's just a sign on a stick. No, that is a result of meetings and diplomacy and who's on the sign and the architectural commissions and design commissions. So that's a pretty good project, the Pasadena one, I think.
But I mean, I don't know if it's through that, but I mean, the ongoing civic leadership, right, of the Playhouse District and being at Art Center.
Yeah, well, I got
professor.
involved. I got involved with the Playhouse Village in Old Pasadena, and I got on the board, and I'm still on the design committee for the district. Now it's the village. You kind of get involved in where you live, and if you care about the place, you want to keep it nice. And
Yeah.
and Pasadena is small enough that you can know a lot of people. It's big enough you can also hide if you want to be anonymous. It's like the perfect size city.
So I love the fact that you got to be a client and hire one of my design heroes, Stefanos Palazoidis, one of the founders.
Yeah, it's weird.
Urbanism.
We're always on the selling side of the desk. So being on the board of directors of the Playhouse Village, we had to do a master plan, and so we got to be the client.
That's awesome.
I don't like that proposal. That's too expensive. So we did finals and interviews. It was great.
That's a blast.
It was great to see the BS some of these guys bring to an interview. Is that how I sounded when I went to interview? So anyway, we ended up with Stefanos. He did a fantastic job, and I still see him all the time. Although he's in Notre Dame all the time now. He's a Notre Dame architect.
That's right.
He's there half the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the transition from a consultant to being able to mentor up kind of a team. We've benefited from some of the folks that you've mentored as part of our graphics team. How has that gone for you in terms of raising up
It's
partners?
gone generally very good, and we always had bright young people, and it breaks your heart when they leave, and we had a couple of those. We always said if you really hire carefully, you don't have to fire very often. So we were pretty good about that. We became a pretty good place to work. I don't know, we paid all that much.
Was that intentional or accidental? Or
people like being there, and
I've heard that.
Sometimes you want to turn over the staff a little bit, but I always wanted a place that people wanted to be and tried to support them. And I never had a atelier model with me and the artisans. I could never pull it off.
So no Padawan.
It was much more egalitarian model with me, and then we had two partners, and we had some divisions of labor, but it was a pretty flat model, and doors always open, which is corny, but it's true.
Yeah, you kind of raised up some real Renaissance people.
Yeah, and when I left after they finally bought me out, I really, for the first few months, really missed those people. You know, how are they doing? You know, how's Charlie doing? You know,
Sure. Because it's a little bit of you don't want to use the word family.
Then I went over there and there's new people. Who hired you? Nobody asked me, right? It was great. It was great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, had that been in the works for a long time? Because I haven't seen a lot of founders in our industry successfully figure out
it's
that
hard. It's hard to
strategy.
do. But the model is what architects do, and it's very common in architecture firms.
Sure.
They're a little bigger. They will have associates who will eventually get ownership, and there are some consulting firms that package transitions for architects. And we engaged one, and they early on put together a plan for me to sell shares to selected people.
Gotcha.
So two of my people, the two partners, started to buy in almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
Let's say it's 10% a year, and you have then they own 10% of the profits, and they're paying a certain amount, and then that closes out, and then, hey, we'd like to get 20%. So you have a meeting with the consultant, and pretty soon you do a deal. Now it's 20, 20, 60. So what's going on here? I can see a trend here. So eventually we put together a deal where they would close me out. We were equal partners for many years.
Yep.
One third. We all had our own books of business, but we shared staff. It was great. And then eventually I became aged to get out of there, and I left, and they paid off things. So now I think it's still 50-50 over there, and I'm got
no seller's remorse.
No, a little bit. But they bought my name, and I promised not to embarrass them. I said, "Don't embarrass me." No, it's great. I'm very happy I could do that. It's not done very often. And they send me notes when they get a big project. They're working on a fantastic thing for Yosemite right now.
Wow.
Man, I wish I could be on that.
Sacred space. Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
So I missed that, but you got to let it go. And I'm very involved at Art Center 1 day a week, mentoring the graduates. And I'm helping USC a little bit with their program with Larry Gertz and Joe Garlington. I was there last week.
Yeah.
That's lots of fun. They're trying to make that a degree. And in fact, it is a degree.
Yeah. That's great.
It's an interesting. I like what John Lindsay said about specializing versus integrating, and which one are you? And I think the SC program is going to have to come to grips with that.
Yeah.
Are they training producers?
Sure.
Are they training specialists?
Right.
The industry is very hard to define and capture academically. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like everything.
Right. Yeah. It's like trying to have a Renaissance major.
It is, and people want to. They think they want to come in, I don't know, be a producer and be in charge of an attraction.
Everyone wants to come in and be Da Vinci, but you kind of need to learn some specific skills at the start of your career, typically.
Yeah, and it sure looks interesting to young people. They're coming in through the gaming design world. The gaming design is the hot thing right now.
That's what my son's studying.
Yeah. How many games can there be? I guess how many chairs? I mean, how many type fonts?
Well, I guess gaming is exceeding film and music.
I know. Yes, it did.
Apparently, there's a lot of work there.
Yeah, it was bigger than the movies. That's an interesting
movies plus music.
Interesting thought.
Yeah. Well, man, I did want to ask you about, you worked with a lot of clients and collaborators that have, I assume, radically different cultures, from whether it's a public agency, National Park Service, even Disney, Six Flags, Universal.
Well, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but anybody who worked for Universal in the 70s and 80s, you had to be tough to work with those guys. That was a rough bunch. And Disney was the nice guys.
Okay.
Universal was the bad guys, and they were proud of it. And you go to those meetings, you would come out bloody. I mean, their model was beat the crap out of every consultant. Yeah. And they didn't agree internally.
Yeah.
They built CityWalk.
Beat the crap out of each other.
They built CityWalk. They took a big chunk out of the parking and out of the theme park to make a shopping center, and nobody wanted it except Wasserman. So it was a fight internally. It turned out to be a mega success.
Sure.
Influenced the whole world.
Yeah.
So to be in those meetings where not only is the client fighting with the consultants, the client's fighting with themselves in front of you. It was very interesting. Now, I think these days...
So there's a lot of ways of getting results, is what you're saying.
Those companies are much more professional and benign, and HR, you couldn't run the business like they did back then.
Sure.
And now there's so many top people have gone back and forth between those companies. I'm sure that their model is more similar and more uniform, the same processes, less screaming and yelling, and it was rough back then. You had to, and then you go in a Wing Chao meeting. You better have your act together. I'm telling you, So you learn a lot working with these really top people. We went in the California Venture meeting when it was first being proposed to work on the logos. I walk in the room and there's Rick Rothschild, Tim Delaney, and Barry Braverman. I thought, oh crap, the three wise men, and they were, and three of the top people in the business were sitting at the table. You're making presentations to these guys. It was great. I later got to work with Rick several times and with Tim several times, both after they left. So those relationships start, and if you do good work and you're good to work with, you can start and maintain a relationship.
Yeah,
that may be harder today, but that's how we did it. We had relationships.
I still think it's a relationship based industry.
I worked with Scott.
Such a weird.
I worked with Scott Malwitz about 6 different places. I mean, we're in one place, and Scott's moving around. Henry Ford, he calls us. Legoland, he calls us. Universal, he calls us.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be a kind of not predictable, but a reliable resource. Now Phil Hemler calls us. And they don't call me; they call my partner. I used to be there, but relationship building is really, really in any industry is what it's all about in the end, right? And they're lasting too.
Absolutely.
They're good.
Well, so you see the different cultures, the different ways of getting to a destination. Some are funner than others, I assume. But you in terms of your own career, you started off somewhere that wasn't so fun to work at. You had a chance to kind of craft your own culture. Any keys or advice you can give to leaders of what makes
Well,
that
I
healthy
think,
culture?
when you work on a really big project, we had 3 big lands to work on for Universal Beijing. And there was 40 people in the room, and the budgets are tough, and every nickel is accountable. Every square foot has to produce profit. So you're in a real high-stress situation, and the client people, they're in a high stress. They deliver a project that's billions of dollars, and you're trying to decide how big the paver is, and you can see the complexity that everybody is faced with in these projects. And you're on a TV screen with 20 people in China, and there's 40 people, and you're in the architect's office, and you're trying to agree on something and stay on schedule. If you're going to be on that team, you've got to work in their rhythm. You've got to find what their rhythm is, and it's not your rhythm. You're signed on to their model. And I think to be successful as a consultant, and that's what our role, you have to understand the rules, or you won't be called back, or you'll be kicked out, which happens occasionally, right? You get fired for cause. Didn't happen too often. So I think the best consultants, the best design firms are able to adapt to the client culture while still bringing unique value to the project.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to do, but I love those big projects where you're in the room with really smart people.
Yeah, that
top people.
Co-creativity is
Dan
so
Herman,
unique.
Really the top people, Jim Scheidel, the top theme park architect. I'd love being in those big meetings with smart, and you're working on projects in Macau with Gensler, with the top landscape firm in Australia. They're all in a room together to figure out this project. I really like that part of it. In fact, that's what I miss most, is being in the room with smart people.
Okay, that co-creativity, synergy.
I get to be in the room with these guys. What do they
get
think?
to be in rooms with the next generation of smart people.
What are they thinking?
As you're teaching them up.
And I also love the travel. I love traveling. I still travel a lot, and I loved going to foreign cultures and trying to work with different cultures and get along with. Working in Korea is different than working in Japan. It's like they're totally different. There's nothing in common. So I like that part a lot. Yeah.
I got to ask you, being able to experience your project from being at that white paper, blue sky phase to experiencing through the eyes of a guest or, after that open, any one standout moment or experience that is memorable?
The opening of Pleasure Island was fantastic. And Gene Siskel was there, who was the TV thumbs up reviewer. I don't know why ABC was Disney by Eisner. Eisner was there hanging around by himself. It was the most wonderful, wonderful opening until a Disney legal guy broke his leg in the roller skating rink.
Oh.
Opening night, a Disney legal guy broke his leg in the, we had the roller skating thing with the bar. And I think that broken leg was the beginning of the end of a fantastic project. And pretty soon there was no roller skating going on.
Comboing alcohol, roller skating.
Teenagers, they were, sneaking in, and it was meant to be like Church Street Station, which is downtown Orlando.
Right.
Very hard to pull that off, have 5 nightclubs with open bars and a shared drinking plaza. Can you imagine the security issues with that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the DNA of that complexity and diversity of placemaking space is still embedded in the DNA of Disney's.
Well, what I didn't realize, I didn't know who Joe Rohde was, and maybe nobody did, but he did one of the
Ventures Club.
Ventures Club, which was probably the main successful venue. Of that whole
from
enterprise.
Experience, attraction, that was the standout.
So that was maybe his coming out party. This is 1988, 89, So that was great that he was there on that project. So,
one of these days we're going to have to buy you some drinks and talk about Disney Mountain, the one that got away.
I've got other stories we can't have on the tape here, I can tell you. But I think it's been fun, and talking with you, I'm sort of bringing back how much fun it was. Sometimes you're in the trenches, and the contract side not easy. Getting paid's not easy. The contracts, as I said, are very thick now. For a small consulting firm, it's hard to get on a giant team now because just legally, it's just challenging.
Yeah.
You have to pay a fortune in legal fees to interpret the contract.
Read the contract.
and then they won't change it after all.
Yeah.
They just tell you what's in it. So it's a little tough. Maybe you're working for the attraction design firms. They're a little smaller model, and they've done the big contract.
Right.
So you've signed their contract, which is a party to the bigger contract. But it was very interesting, and I liked the business side. I hated to wake up and worry about making the payroll. You make the payroll.
Yeah.
You look at those numbers. You go, oh my God, we got to collect. You're carrying accounts receivables forward.
Yeah, cash is
every
the
month,
oxygen in the tank.
Every month, and that's very stressful. But but that's what a business is, right?
But the ability to play in the sandbox, but still be able to cash flow that.
We were in black ink most years. I was there 40x years. I think we were in black ink almost every year. There's a couple of years.
That's impressive.
The 08, that didn't help, and there was a big 90s crash. There's been several of these, and then of course 9/11 was one of the worst days for many reasons. But we had all those airport contracts. Within a week, they were all gone. Yeah. About a third of our book, our backlog, gone. A big LX contract, the biggest one we ever had, but they all came back within a year, 18 months. But boy, the shock of those airports just canceling stuff.
Yeah.
What do? You got 6 people working on that project, and there's no notice, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we've got a lot of graphic designers that are interested in breaking into the themed entertainment industry. A lot of them are going to be listening and having questions. But any high level
design, have we?
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, I would love to get your take on graphic design as a discipline, and specifically today versus when you were starting in the niche. How easy is it? Easier or harder to break into the experience design?
I've got something on that. I was trained in a fairly classic modern European mode that we call Swiss graphics in the 60s. Only later did I start to see the connection with graphic design and storytelling, and I saw that through set design in theater. I had a graduate set design class at Illinois. I thought, oh man, this is pretty cool. I didn't see signs on it. So the idea that the discipline of graphic design can apply to a physical space. John Follis sort of taught me that. The people need to know where to go. They know what to do when they get there, how to buy something. They need how to park. Maybe need a story told to them. So the discipline of graphic design is easy to apply to placemaking. The missing ingredient is architecture and scale. And we don't learn scale in architecture in graphic design school. So at Art Center, I had a class that did that. Graphic design for buildings, places, and spaces. I taught that class for years. And I took the graphic designers who were competent in typography and composition, and I showed them how to do a scale drawing, how it applies big, how this sketch symbolizes something that's 20 feet, only it's this big. So within a semester, I could take a pretty good graphic designer and show them how to apply all the classic design principles to physical space. I could take anybody and teach them that. Now, they may not want to do that, but the principles of typography and lettering and color and composition apply. They're just bigger. They also exist in time. So you're seeing one thing and another thing. So you have a dimensional issue of wayfinding, sequence of experience. But if you do an exhibition is heavy on information and graphics, in addition to the physical, the physical things in an exhibit. So it definitely relates in that regard. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Let's open it up to questions. Yeah. Well, thanks for, again, everyone joining in, listening. We've got some great questions. I know we got a good representation just from our own Storyland Studios graphic department. One thing I did want to just highlight is, again, assuming that we've got a lot of listeners that potentially just may not really fully, have an overview of graphic design or wayfinding in experience design and themed entertainment and theme park. design. Would you mind just giving kind of like just a mile high overview again of Society of Environmental Graphic Designers, of the discipline, and then examples beyond just like a mall directory or, a bathroom sign, like, to someone completely uninitiated that's just like trying to figure out, what field you've been involved with?
Well, I think if you understand what graphic design is, that's a pretty understandable discipline, right? It's typography, sure. Two-dimensional communication, posters, logos, very easy to understand. If you take all those principles and you apply them to a physical environment, but you keep the principles, but you add the complexity of side view, distance, space, time sequence, weather, lighting, but it's still graphic design is what's being included in the spatial environment, whether it's entertainment or an airport or a hospital or a city. So it's simply applying graphic design principles in a three-dimensional environment. To me, that's the sky high view.
Yeah. Well, when especially when you guys were involved as lead consultant, but that kind of blurred line sometimes between show set and kind of placemaking and public art. Do you mind just talking about that fuzzy line sometimes?
Yeah. Okay. This is coming down a little bit. There's three areas that we were able to say we could participate in. The obvious is the sort of the wayfinding, maps, signage. That's pretty understandable. How to get around safely someplace, retail graphics, the idea of literal information that helps you access an experience. You have that in hospitals and cities and theme parks. But the second thing is helping create the environment by using graphic media. And that would be the show set design. We would call them show graphics. That's where you're working with the writers and the architects and designers to help tell the story by means of graphic media. And Mel, the best example is what you see when you go to the theater. You're sitting in a Shakespeare play. You're not in back in 17th century England, but it looks like you are because somebody painted the beautiful scenery. It's two-dimensional graphics. So those are theater set design are essentially show graphics. And so almost all theme parks have some need to help tell the story through environmental design. You could build a castle, or you can do a painting of it. You could paint a crest of arms on the way to the castle. So the show graphics are a huge opportunity in graphic design. It's not wayfinding, it's helping create the environment using graphic design. It's
part of that world building. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, from really light touches to heavy themed pieces. So that's two, wayfinding and we call show graphics. And the third thing is the branding of the place itself. And that's creating the names, logos, colors, even the marketing materials, land naming, ride naming. We did a lot of that for smaller parks, sort of creating the narrative overview, somewhat independent of design, but it's kind of the branding or the sort of strategy of communicating with guests that it can be graphics, but it's a kind of branding in the broadest sense. So those three areas, we could make a case for any one, two, or three of those in a big project. Now you don't do show set graphics in a hospital. However, we did a lot of colorful wall graphics in a children's hospital, and it's a sort of the same thing. You're creating a space.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that
awesome?
Is that narrow it down?
Perfect. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Although we are getting to do show graphics at Children's Hospital as we speak, so we're having fun blurring those lines. Well, speaking of that, I remember we started talking about Universal City Walk and how I didn't know if you won the lunch or the dinner with that pompous executive. No, I'm just kidding. But was that like? Yeah, was that a pretty tough collaboration brainstorming session, or was that just a no-brainer to you to just come down the pipe of
Well,
creativity.
it's a joke I made up later, but it was certainly true. But we did have lunch with this individual, and
Yeah.
that was a very challenging project. And we knew going in it was tough. And when the client doesn't agree with themselves in public, you know you have a problem. Usually, you expect the client to have a single voice, and you're trying to respond to it. But when there's two different voices, who do you who do you work with? So yeah.
Well, I just find that so interesting to be at the cusp of. I remember when Peter Rummel, the head of Disney Imagineering, was also involved with Urban Land Institute, and I was going to some of the very first.
ULI.
I think they called it Urban Entertainment Development Conferences. They were really ready to roll out this UED typology, which I think morphed into lifestyle retail, but pretty influential around the world. I mean, just the Universal City Walks, of course, have been cut and pasted in Orlando and Beijing and Japan. I was just curious, being there at the birth, seeing the evolution. Have you been to any of the newer ones in Asia, or have you seen like the newer downtown Disney, whether it's Disney Springs in Orlando or
the concept, like anything successful, the owner wants to make it bigger. Let's do more of it. Let's make it twice as big. And often the bigger it gets, the less interesting it is, and the less success per square foot. So John Jurdy, the great architect who really taught us how to do downtowns,
one of my heroes.
He had a model of, he called it the 40-minute walk. And he based this on the Galleria in Milan and in ancient marketplaces. The City Walk, when he first did it, was that perfect. You could do a 40-minute walk to take it in. It's a place you go to as a place, and then you decide what you're going to do when you get there. That's when it's a successful place. You go to Old Pasadena, and then you pick the restaurant.
Right. It's a destination first.
Yes. That's a hard thing to pull off. So let's make it twice as big. Okay, now it's an hour and a half walk, and the focus is gone. Let's make it even bigger. And they also you can tell that the edginess of a concept tends to get softened and more generic as it gets more successful. And you have the rules of retail, and pretty soon it turns into kind of a shopping center instead of a real destination place that you can identify with that's distinct from someplace else. And even our best friends down in Anaheim, you go down to, you're just in a really well done shopping center. In some cases, it doesn't really have the sense of place that you would do with a smaller operator, with less executives, less attorneys. I mean, there's a gravitational pull, I hate to use the word mediocrity, towards generic in the design business. The bigger things are, the more softer and less interesting they are. So you want to be on the small, cool stuff, and which is where the real action is, Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I got to add to that because, I remember City Walk opening, and it was kind of cool that there was like a UCLA extension, in a postmodern recreation of Royce Hall, so you had people come in for classes. You had, you had the Universal Creative Team actually working from upstairs. You had different office spaces. It was, whereas
I recall that lease was not an original lease because it wasn't the ideal rent, but the original model done by Jurdy and the really great architect who led that team, he did all his measurements from Melrose Boulevard. All of those storefronts were in the scale of Melrose with different heights and different setbacks. It was a kind of eclectic environment it was designed, but it looked a little undesigned. Mm-hmm. It's just right. But you can't make that endlessly large and keep that interesting,
Yeah. Good friend of mine, great designer, Alex Cording, new transplant to Hollywood. Basically wanted to clarify 14-minute walk or 40-minute walk, whether you're talking about walking the perimeter or
40.
whether you're walking center to edge. So he was talking about it's a loop.
It's a loop. And Old Pasadena,
the perimeter.
Old Pasadena is a great example. It's like 5 blocks, and you can see all of it and see almost all the stores and get back to your car. It's a perfect, in urban design, it's called a park once. You don't move your car.
Yep. Right.
You're going to have dinner and a movie, or dinner, whatever you're going to do. So downtowns have been trying to do that, and they still are. The Playhouse Village is kind of that model. And graphic design is not the lead on those projects, but we help. As Judy said, we had the jewelry. We had the jewelry to the facades, and yeah.
Well, it's such a key piece, because I think one of the key things about urban design is creating the ability to create that mental map, that sense of place in your head, whether you're just completely dazed and confused, wandering around, anonymity and confusion and anxiety, or whether you actually feel great and you're excited to discover what's around the next corner, or what's down this little alley or street or skinny street.
I think there's a delicate balance of a sense of discovery and a sense of security. And I think you want to be surprised, but you don't want to be frightened.
Scared.
There's a kind of I think Disney does a great job with that, although there you are feeling very, very secure. Urban environment, you have a little bit of edginess, and that's why it's so interesting to go to Georgetown in Washington, D.C., or East Village in New York. I mean, name all.
Just flew in from Paris and Montmartre and then the left bank and
Belmont Shore. I mean, you can name all over the place, and they're all about the same size, by the way. These things.
Yeah.
To the earlier point, right.
Well, that's, I think, what Alex was asking. I mean, the idea of the 15-minute city now, and the walk radius from center to the edge is kind of becoming the pedestrian shed. That human scale is kind of becoming more in vogue.
Exactly.
Is there a key you've been involved with some of these urban wayfinding identity package in terms of kind of conveying that idea, that branding, that name of the destination? Sometimes it has just having a name like a Soho or a NoHo or whatever. Like, is that something that it can be actually manufactured? Is it kind of,
Well, that's a great question, right? Because most of these great names are organic. They bubbled up from the customers, right? Nickname Soho was not done by a marketing firm. That just came from
at least not the first one.
Yeah. So okay, let's make a great downtown. Okay, let's get a cool name. Let's get something like a Soho. So you have a branding team come in and you try to artificially create a name. Now, some of those have worked. Most of them don't. Have you ever heard of the Edge? Where's the Edge? Was that a Huntington Beach thing that didn't work? I mean, you have kind of artificially overlay a branding or name that is meant to look like it bubbled up, and it didn't. It was layered over. Very hard to get your customers to buy into an artificial name, and I think there are some very good branding firms that could make that work. But WeHo. I mean, there's a few that I know of that. I mean, you have things like Jumbo in Brooklyn. I mean, the best names are from the people.
Yeah, Dumbo down under the
Dumbo. Yeah, so that name, the whole naming thing is interesting, and now there are firms that just do that. Shopping centers, and some are very successful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I've got a couple of they're really stacking up here of questions. Bryce, one of our creative directors, who actually has taken the baton on LAX now, and we're having a chance to reshape that, working with the bones that you laid down, the tracks you laid down there. When starting a new design, what's your first step? Is it story, material, message? What's your starting point typically? Well, especially if you're, the prime.
The story thing is definitely from the theme park world. There isn't a story in an airport unless you take the broadest definition of that. I don't know. I think we're trying to decide what's the purpose here. Are you trying to get people in airplanes faster? Are you trying to get people to slow down and go shopping? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to get people to feel safer? Are you trying to get them parked quicker? Are you trying to make them understand history in National Park? So I think
a little bit of figure out the function, I guess.
Why are you there? Yeah, most of these projects do have a purpose that at least the client thinks they want, right? And you trying to think of examples. Saratoga National Park in New York, that was a storytelling project. The two most famous battles of the Revolutionary War were there, but you couldn't understand the panels. Nobody, the drama wasn't there. So it was a matter of reinvigorating and retelling that history visually and verbally, and putting it where people could find it, and not messing up the sight line. So I think being a secondary discipline, graphics, you were almost always in the service of somebody else's scope of work or somebody else's idea or need. I mean, I suppose an architect is too if they need a new library. But we're trying to be a teammate to suss out what the client needs on that project, I think. I mean, that's kind of a wonky answer.
Speaking on that, when you're filling a seat as part of the larger orchestra, do you have any preferred conductors in terms of whether they're design, whether it's an architect, whether it's a story writer, whether it's kind of a public entity, whether it's a city, whether it's a nonprofit? I mean, sometimes it's fun working with kind of newbies, I guess, because you get to help educate and shape a little bit more of the criteria.
Well, I think anybody who's been around long enough to make the payroll for many, many years is pretty good at working with a wide variety of project types, people, situations. And I think earlier today we talked about relationship building, and that is absolutely. If you do a good job and you're good to work with, you're going to get called back. If you do a good job and you're hard to work with, you may not get called back. First, you have to do a good job. You could be the nicest guy in the world, and if the work's crap, you're not going to get anything. I always enjoyed working with, I hate to use the word amateurs, but working with public entities and city groups, boards of directors of business districts. I was always pretty good with sussing out who in the room really called the shots. It's like working in Japan, right? You never know who. There's 20 people. You don't know which one is really making that decision. You're trying to sell all 19 of them, and you don't know this guy is the decision maker. If that's the question, I think working with interesting people is great. And then when you're working on a design project, like for a theme park or a architecture project, you're working with an architect or the producer, and they're super creative. So you're kind of in their glow, figuring out their vibe, what works for them. One of my best clients ever, on a big project, he said to me and all the other, he said, Wayne, how can I help you succeed on this project? I need you to do the best job you can. If you succeed, I'm going to succeed. He told every consultant that. I thought, isn't that great? He wanted to help me do my job to make his job better. Instead of this confrontational model that you used to see, this sort of right off the bat, I call that the Las Vegas casino confrontational model, where they dare you to get it right, and
I thought that was the MCA corporate bloody nose model.
Yeah, I think the guys in Las Vegas inherited that,
Awesome. Well, speaking of that collaboration, our friend Doug is a writer. He asked about specifically can you talk about the collaboration between designers and writers when it comes to signage? For example, guys like Kevin Rafferty, they're so great at the word puns and, whether it's show graphics or whatever.
That goes way beyond wayfinding. Yeah. But the creative thing, I'm a kind of a amateur writer myself. I love puns. And fortunately, a lot of my puns don't get recognized. My sense of humor is a little out there sometimes. But working with on the Rafferty side, on the light side, Marty Sklar, when he was really actively writing, he wrote a lot of great stuff. He wrote all these hilarious historic panels for Pleasure Island. They were in the style of a National Park Service history panel, but they were full of jokes and inside things, 30 or 40 of them, and we treated them like real panels. But they really had the really clever writing. Now, the more serious writing, if you're writing...
Well, I gotta say, it's so funny when you go to real world places now, like Victoria Gardens or the villages in Florida, and they have those faux Pleasure Island site fake historical plaques now with the backstory.
Then working on interpretive projects at National Park or Space Center, where they have real stories, the writing is really key because sadly, people are reading less and less. It's hard to make them read past the third or fourth sentence. And if writers are listening, we always try to find techniques to make the copy more interesting looking, descending type sizes, keywords. We found in zoos that people just don't read more than about 30 seconds and they give up. So you've got to get them in the first sentence to get them to read the second sentence. I'm very, very in tune to the meaning of words in our projects. It's not just a bunch of gray type. It's important story. And conversely, I'd be on an exhibition project and the writing is so dense and obtuse, nobody's going to read this. Oh, it's important, it's important. Well, it's important if they read it. If nobody has read it, it ain't so important. So you got to get this down from 500 words down to 50, and we'll have a chance at it. So the decline in actual reading is really frustrating to a lot of people. We're much more visual. Young people are impatient. They don't want to read a lot.
Yeah, so, attention span has really shrunk.
I think the writers are the real heroes of these places. Exhibition writing. That's super key. Now, writing a story in a theme park is a little bit different. I'm not really on top of how that's done, other than pre-shows and some of the gags you see. Funny stuff in the site planning and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, kind of coming around to wayfinding graphics, Shaney has had a great question. When you're designing wayfinding graphics, is there a singular guiding principle, question, or a core idea that you've tended to consistently return to in order to ensure that clarity for the audience?
There is. The first thing is the environment a critical environment or is it a leisure environment? In a hospital, there's no time to wait. You've got to get people places. They've never been there. They're stressed. It may be an emergency. Airport, next level down, that's not entertainment. That's people have got to get places. So things like sightlines and signage are not only functional to help people, they are stress relieving, just to see signs. So as you get in environments that are less technical and less critical, then you can make it a little more interesting and a little more, what does this person need? You don't need a lot of signs in a shopping district. If the architect has done their job, you wayfind on sightlines. I often have said that a directional sign in a building often indicates a failure of architecture. In other words, I should be able to find my way around this building by looking where the doorways are, the light, wayfinding cues, the color of the walls, sculpture. We used to call that turn left at the Shell station wayfinding, where you're using icons, not signs. Now, obviously, in a highly complex building, you need tons of directions. But I think a wayfinding sign is a last resort in an environment. The environment should be self-guiding. Now, that makes architects feel good when I tell them that, but we're still going to put signs on their building. But I'm curious about the science of wayfinding and what people want to know. They can only read up to 3 messages at a time. The 4th message they can't get. So you've got to give them the 3 they need, and then down the street you get 3 more, or one drops off and you add one. There's a whole bunch of psychology of how to list things, how much space to have, shortened words. We learned that from the people who do highway signs, by the way. That's a very disciplined, message, minimalistic approach. The fewest signs, fewest words, fewest left turns. There's a whole bunch of principles of wayfinding. If you're a driver, it's left, right, straight is the priority. If you're a pedestrian, it is straight, right, left on the signs. You know that? If you're listing messages, it's a subtle thing. So I mean, it's an arcane science, but there's a lot to it.
Awesome. Well, kind of related, Johnny's one of our senior creatives. He's asking about the balance between creativity, placemaking, wayfinding, supporting the story, the identity of a planned district, whether it's a Universal City Walk or downtown district or a themed land, while also serving multiple well-established brands. Kind of almost the shopkeepers versus kind of the placemaking.
you have a couple of things to come up. Theme parks, we're always, if you get a producer or a big art director, they think all the wayfinding should be highly thematic. It should look Victorian. It should look old-fashioned. But yet they've got 5 lands, and each land has a different personality. So you could make the case that the wayfinding for the park, it should be rather neutral and get you to the lands where the lands have their personality and branding. We would often say that the wayfinding signs are not the party. They want to get you to the party. Now, you can take the opposite approach and make highly decorative signage in those environments. And I often cringe when I see overly designed wayfinding signs. It's trying to be a work of art when it's really a utilitarian tool to support a bigger thing. Now, the design should be complementary. It should use nice colors. It should fit in the environment. But it's an interesting sort of unresolvable argument over when do you introduce a story or not? You use historic references or modern references. If you go to Europe, Europe uses a ton of modern signage in their ancient districts. I mean, they have no trouble putting up a stainless steel sign in front of a temple that's 600 years old. Mm-hmm. Where here in America, we want a sign that doesn't distract. We don't want to make a sign look like it was built in the temple. So it's another interesting arcane discussion you can have over a couple of beers and never get that resolved. Here in Pasadena, we are absolutely dogged by our sense of history, and all new buildings are meant to have a contextual, not historical, contextual touch. And what that means, they have to be the right size, which is fine. But they want them to not look modern because Pasadena is not modern. When I say, well, this building you love from 1926 was modern in 1926. It wasn't trying to be 1893. It was the modernest thing they could build. Look around. We have a lot of, every era, there are very nice buildings. But the predominance of buildings in Pasadena, the last 40 years, are kind of a pastiche of sort of history references. They kind of, because the historic people, I'm a member of that, of the Heritage Board, of the Heritage, they think the time stopped in 1929. And so modern buildings are bad. You go to Europe, they'll put a beautiful glass building next to a cathedral, and it looks great. So I wandered off on that, but that's a design philosophy.
Yeah.
I think design should be of its time, generally, unless you're doing a theme park or a stage set where you're trying to emulate 17th century England or Greece or Paris. Then you're trying to create a sense of disbelief or suspend disbelief. So that's a Paris streetscape, and here's the dancers. So anyway, that's sort of where I get.
No, it's really
I get wound
fascinating.
up with this. I get wound up with this sometimes. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, it definitely helps having grown up in Europe when you have that just core critical mass of historical context. Yeah. Because the sense of place is very rich. It's very there. So it almost is refreshing to have those contrasting kind of elements, like whether it's a Bilbao museum or a contemporary stainless steel wayfinding element. Yeah. Okay. You got to put your thinking cap back on. Adrian has one of these zingers for you. How have technologies influence on societal norms, such as social interactions and how we perceive the real world, affected key design principles for wayfinding? Okay,
I've been out of the business now for 6 years, and I think it's already changed so much. My only connection is with my students at Art Center. That's why I love teaching, because they kind of keep me up to date on what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, the literal wayfinding thing, the wayfinding apps have been a major, major transformation.
Absolutely.
And, how often do you go someplace and follow the signs? No. You got your GIS in your car. Turn left.
Or in your palm of your hand, walking around. Yeah.
Take exit 22 for South Orangeville Boulevard. And the line there is, you know where you are, but not how you got there. You don't know. You can never replace it. but you still need the signs for you call ancillary travel and the marketing things you weren't planning to go to. So the wayfinding technology is spectacular. Now it's going to be in your glasses pretty soon. You won't even have to hold your phone up. It will.
Right.
The library is 100 feet ahead, and it'll be right there. So the ability of technology to interpret and play back the environment, it's just wow. Now that's not social media. That's simply technology that's just come on in the last 10 years. And the headsets haven't quite made it yet, but I know Apple's trying to make theirs transparent. Google Glasses didn't make it, but they will. All these things are fits and starts, right?
It's augmented reality,
right? Now, social media. I have a nice Instagram account for my art, but I don't know really how it works, and I post, but I don't know. The question asked is so broad. I don't know. Social media has certainly influenced politics, and it's the dominant information source for a lot of young people.
Yep.
It is so decentralized and democratic, and maybe the worst possible way in that there's no central source for this information. It's a kind of info free for all, and you dial into a story that you like, people you like, and the echo chamber. You seek out social media. It reflects your own values, and it just reinforces those values. And there's 100 of them. So this.
I think the algorithms keep shoving people into these darker and darker extreme corners.
And the walls get higher, and it's very isolating. And I don't know what's going to happen. But Mel, we've only been in this for 20 years now, which is a short time. So I don't know where that's going to go, and I'm not sure how it relates to graphics, other than they have the real cool logos and cool icons on my phone. Wow, that's a good design. Who did that?
But you're right. What a difference.
That wasn't a very good answer. That wasn't a very good answer. Yeah.
Well, no, I think you're hitting on some of the major themes. Solveig actually has a related question, just related to the quote new trend of immersive experiences in rooms, like environmental projection rooms, walls, LEDs. Do you think that's going to last? Is it hype? Is it
Okay. I just read something just last week. Have we gone too far with the immersive environments? We're still in the wowee phase, but once you've seen the sphere, what else is next? Whatever is next is not going to be as dramatic, and now you can throw a switch and the whole environment changes to something else, and it's become so commonplace, and they're so interactive. It can read your pulse. You can I think we're going to get a little worn out by it, and I think we're going to have to return to the narrative. I can already see a kind of burnout of these places. And the technology is so rich, and it's getting awfully affordable. You could digitize your baby's bedroom, and it could be a night scene, and you flip a switch, and it's cows in a pasture, because the whole wall is digital. So the power to create these artificial environments is so amazing. I already find them a little less interesting than I did 10 years ago, 5 years ago. The wowee is starting to wear off. And let me tell you a thing about the Sphere. Have you seen the Sphere in Las Vegas?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Saw my favorite band there.
Here's you go to Hong Kong in the 90s, 80s. Oh, there's look at the lighting on these buildings. You go to Macau 10 years later. Wow, the whole building is light. Fast forward to the Sphere, there's no more building. The architecture is essentially gone. The story and illumination has taken over the building. There's a building there, but nobody's mentioned the building. The architecture is only there to support these screens. So is it the end of architecture? I mean, it's a weird thing, if the whole building can be a curved spherical screen, all you need is engineers to hold it up. It's not, you don't have the conventions of architecture and placemaking and movement. And so I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Our Art Center grad students all take this media class where they are all doing a project where it's interactive, super high tech media. They can do this and throw letters on the wall. The letters go on the wall because they do, because they've put things in their fingers and they program the typography. And these are grad students, so wow, I don't know. I mean, it's I'd be curious to see what some of these people like Bob Rogers and other Jeremy Elton, what do they think is going to be happening with this, because they're the ones that really have made this viable, but they're also super big on narrative and real content and storytelling. I don't know, Mel, where this is going. I'm curious. What do you think? I mean, it's crazy out there.
Well, we're going to have to do some follow-up happy hours to go deep. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're either creating some emotional experience and transformation, or it's just kind of a...
And then back to wayfinding, I'm pretty sure you walk in a mall and it knows you like shoes. So the shoe billboard comes up. You could walk in an airport and it knows you're going to Delta. Your personal information should come up as you pass by.
Yeah, Minority Report.
You got 20 minutes to get there, because your something on you is programming that information to be on the sign. So you're part of this environment, this dynamic. Isn't it amazing that the tech? If you fool around with
the Wild West.
I was working with ChatGPT the other night. I thought, wow, this is. I mean, he wrote a limerick for me.
Whole new sandboxes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, getting back down to practical, great question. What's a project that just completely went way off the rails and some lessons learned? Can you think of any really great brain damage incurred over the years?
I used to go to this design conference in Utah every year, and I always did a presentation. And one year, the conference guy said, "Wayne, why don't you do a presentation on failed projects? You know a lot of people. Why don't you get all your buddies to tell you about one project that failed?" So, I'm calling people, emailing, and architects. Nobody would give me a failed project. They wouldn't. They legal reasons or embarrassment. So people's failures fade away. It's like when you lose money in Las Vegas, you forget that. But man, the time you hit that.
That's why you're back.
That's why you're back. So, going off the rail, I don't know examples.
I mean, the nature of firm problem. Was it more people? Was it knowledge? Was it staffing, resourcing?
I think you could trace a lot of these back to an unclear definition of what the project is supposed to be, and changing management on the client side, and different goals, or the budget changes. The Pleasure Island project, which I love so much, really suffered from executive neglect. It had some champions. One of them was Michael Eisner, and nobody argued with him. So let's build this great project, and they did. But people who were working for him didn't like it, and they wouldn't tell him. And so it's not right when the senior executives won't come to the meetings or the opening. So, ouch. I think it has to do with the defining the project and how you're going to do it. Sometimes you end up with legal issues or technical, or you can't build something because there's bad dirt, something literal like hazardous waste removal. I mean, I don't know, the creative disagreements. I mean, I think I was talking about earlier. I think we were around so long because we could get along with most people, and we could resolve a disagreement, or we would be put in our place and be okay. I don't know, I'm thinking of things that go wrong. We got fired a few times, and then we were on one team where the whole team got fired, architect and everybody. Fired for convenience, not cause. So you get your pay. I'm not thinking of a lot of real specific. I'm an example of my trying to get people to tell you their failures. There's technical failures. We should never pick that color. What were we thinking? Or that material is not going to last like we thought. We did a whole bunch of glass interpretive. Actually, they were donor recognition things. And set in the pavement. It's just beautiful. We had a glass guy who said it was going to work, an engineer, and goddamn it failed after 2 years. It just, they couldn't keep water out of it. And now I saw it, it's all paved over. The same shapes are there.
Oh, no.
Used to be light.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's just like a paver in there. Well, that's like an artifact from a different era. That was a remnant of a failed technically. Creatively, it was quite good. But often we're doing things that are technically on the edge, and you cross your fingers that.
Yeah, I think Scott's still dealing with that with some of the new Epcot lit paving, kind of between water, electricity. It's a tough combo.
Yeah, of course, you're working with the elements and wear and tear and safety, and that's one reason it's so interesting, because it's so complicated. It is so complicated, right? I like that. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle.
It is. Well, hey, I want to leave on a helping everyone on the listening have a add to their bucket list. You've been around the world and back, my friend. And I really appreciate your heart and passion for just not just graphics, wayfinding, but just places and placemaking and destinations. Do you have a favorite destination, whether it's an urban district, that 40-minute district, whether it's a land, whether it's that you didn't work on?
Well, in general, we go to New York 3 times a year just to see a couple of shows. I can't get enough of New York. Every neighbor, we walk. New York is a giant destination. Now, you need a couple of bucks in your pocket if you're going to go to New York. I don't enjoy Las Vegas. We travel a lot internationally. It is hard to beat Greece for
my son's there right now. Yeah, on a senior trip.
The trouble with Greece is there's 1,000 Greek islands. We only went to 6. So that was great. I really like Times Square, even though I have a jaundice eye about it. I don't like the crazy people, but I like the way they build your shape and Broadway, 42nd Street, 44th.
Well, especially with the takeover of some of the street in the pedestrian areas
we
now.
stay right 2 blocks away from there on 44th, and I'm happy to walk through it after the theater. That's a great place. What else? Great places. It's hard to beat Main Street Disneyland. I mean, for pure, a little nostalgia there. I still like Old Pasadena. I just live 2 blocks away.
It's great. Yeah.
It's had its ups and downs, and it's like 3.0 now, 4.0. But I'll often not drive my car for 4 days. I just walk to the market and walk to lunch, walk to dinner. So the walking environments are still my highlight. New York is good for that. Edinburgh is a great. Okay, Edinburgh, the King's Road in Edinburgh. King's Road
earlier this year
is one of the great urban walking experiences.
That's a great mile. The Royal Mile is a great walk.
That is a great experience. Dublin. I mean, you can just check these off.
All right. Well, I've got some calls into my travel agent.
Yeah.
Well, Wayne, thanks so much. I really appreciate all the wisdom, all the insight you brought to the Themed Entertainment Association, to the Society of Environmental Graphic Designers, which we didn't have a chance to talk about much. But and again, thanks for really personally all that you've taught me, directly, indirectly, through your writings, through your work. Really just appreciate the time, the energy, the passion.
Well, thank you, Mel.
For pouring into guys like Rick Chavez, who's on the call on our team. You've just raised up so many amazing.
Making me miss the business here. I'm kind of.
Well, hey, we'll take you back anytime, buddy. So let's get back in the sandbox together.
Alrighty.
So thanks again. Have a good night.
Mel. Thank you.